Tonight's agenda status of the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilmember. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Mayor Barrett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Rivero.
Here.
Councilmember Ames.
Here.
Councilmember Patena.
Here.
Councilmember Edwards.
Here.
Councilmember Carlott. Here. And Councilmember Leon.
Here.
Thank you. I guess the subject is the fiscal year 2014 budget.
Indeed.
You're on.
Here we are again. With everyone at the table like this, it must be the capital improvement program, right? And it is. This, of course, is an important feature of our budget, is our good long-range planning and funding for our capital improvements in the city. The first item on the agenda this evening is an update and discussion of the proposed capital improvement program, the 10-year balanced capital improvement program. And then the second item this evening is a discussion of our economic development program and funding. So with that, I'll kick off the CIP by turning it over to Katie Gregory.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Tonight, we're going to talk about the capital program first. The CIP is, as Carl mentioned, a 10-year balanced plan that addresses projects that are needed or would be needed across a broad spectrum of areas. It is a dynamic plan, meaning it changes over time, and a great deal of effort is put into updating this plan to ensure not only that critical needs are met, but also that the cost, the scope, and timing of all projects are coordinated throughout the city. City staff identify and prioritize projects, estimate project costs, determine available resources, balance those requests with the available resources, and ultimately submit a recommended program to the City Council. One key consideration is the city's ability to fund the ongoing operations and maintenance costs associated with each project. And as such, the project operating impacts are incorporated into our long-range forecast each year. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit very quickly about just some funding sources related to the CIP, and then we'll turn it over to Andy Granger, Bill Mattingly, and John Sefton to, and it looks like Ed and maybe even Kirk, to talk a little bit about the projects that are in the 10-year proposed plan. It does start on page 1 in your book. Should be easy to find, let's hope. The CIP 1, yes. So the 10-year capital program is a $524 million program. There are a number of funding sources that help support the projects that are within the program, and a number of those are listed up here. The first one of impact fees. This used to be a very much larger portion of the pie that you would see on here, but we do have some uncertain future related to impact fees, certainly some more limitations placed on those, and so we're careful to budget only the current balances until we have our new fees that are set, at which time then we will be able to reevaluate some of the opportunities that we have. The RTP has been a very important source of funding for the city over the past 5 years. We received a total of $54 million in reimbursements, and that was primarily spent on a number of high-priority projects across the city. And of the $54 million, the majority has been spent, and what remains has been programmed into the recommended CIP that you have before you. In the area of bonds, we have two types of bonds listed here, GO bonds and revenue bonds. Revenue bonds primarily support our water and wastewater enterprises. GO bonds are supported through our property tax, our secondary property tax rate. We are finally beginning to see, as I hope you all are seeing, that the assessed valuations are improving. We do anticipate a reduction in assessed valuation in fiscal year 14, but going forward, we are starting to see some increases in assessed valuation. However, it is important to note that in fiscal year 2016, we will be limited by Proposition 117 to a 5% growth in assessed valuation per year. And this would impact the city as we experience a rebounding of property values, but maybe we'll be limited in our ability to generate additional capacity. So that's That's the GO bonds. We also have on here the MDA bonds. This is attributable primarily to the Peoria Sports Complex clubhouse and stadium improvements that are underway now. The transportation sales tax continues to be an important source of funding for our streets capital project, makes up about 11% of the overall. And in the operating category, what you see there is primarily the water and wastewater projects, as well as some use of some of the fund balances with general fund, streets and half-cent sales tax, which primarily supports our economic development efforts. So a lot of what you have in economic development in the capital program is within those funds as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Mr.
Before you, I have a quick question. I'm sorry, I was daydreaming. When does Prop 117 kick in?
Fiscal year 16.
Thank you.
Turn it over to Andy Granger.
Thank you, Katie. Mayor, members of the council, one of the things that we do during the budget process for the CIP presentation every year is to try and go over some of the presentation or some of the accomplishments that we've had over the past year to kind of celebrate some the accomplishments in the CIP. So that's what we're going to do again this year before we go forward with some of the projects that we're going to start next year. The first project we like to talk about is the community center expansion. Here you see a picture of what the expansion of the existing facility by approximately 12,000 square feet. That included a new game room, a new fitness room, and a multi-purpose room as part of those amenities, including improved energy efficiency controls throughout the facility. And we do anticipate this being our second LEED certified facility within the city, the first facility being the courthouse expansion. You may recall last fall we asked for $120,000 because we thought we were going to go over our budget on this project because of unforeseen circumstances when we were starting to dig some of the subsurface foundations for this project. We're happy to announce that we're going to return those savings. We didn't need them, but we wanted to make sure that we had them just in case, but we will be returning them to the appropriate funds at this time. So, and this shows the multi-purpose room within the community center. We ended up we value engineered some other areas, and we just some of the costs we saved in some of the areas that we didn't anticipate originally having savings. So by the end of the project, we had that saving in the $120,000.
But you still did the work.
Yes, we still did all the work that we needed to do. The next project is the Scotland Yard Park, new neighborhood park for the community. We had the grand opening ceremony last September. Includes a dog park, citrus grove, basketball courts, tennis courts, and a large sod area. It's an 8+ acre park for the community. This just shows the grand opening for the park. The council chamber enhancements, where we're sitting today, the table improvements, some technology improvements, as well as podium improvements to help improve the functionality of our sessions that we have here, including our study sessions, our subcommittee meetings, and our budget workshops in this area. No, we're still working out some audio bugs. Our 83rd Ave roadway improvements project, which is a companion project to Pioneer Community Park from Butler to Mountain View. The project is still under construction, but we anticipate being complete by the end of next month. They've paved the base course for the southbound lanes, and then you can see in this picture the landscape median, the raised landscape median is being installed, and the trees are being installed within that median. And this shows a picture along Butler, the half-street improvements from 83rd down to 79th Avenue for access to the southern portion of the park also. Actually, going back to 83rd Ave, I did just want to note on that project that we did, it was a $7.3 million overall budget. Of that budget, $4 million were Prop 400 funds in that project. So we did take advantage of some of the county half-cent sales tax funds. And we do anticipate $500,000 becoming under our budget of by about $500,000 also.
Thank you. And does that include all of the reclaimed water and all the landscaping, all of the finished project for the roads coming out of the park?
There is reclaimed water incorporated into the roadway project. Some of the reclaimed water was part of the Pioneer Community Park. Mm-hmm. The Prop 400 funds can only fund street improvements. They can't fund water and wastewater.
Yeah, I guess I was referring to the project as a whole.
It does. It does. All the landscape in the median is feeded with reclaimed water.
And the park also, and actually all the way up to City Hall now, right?
Yes.
And Osuna Park too. right? Not yet?
We're on our way up there.
That's good. Thanks.
Our 75th Ave and Thunderbird Road intersection improvements were completed earlier this year and provides improved functionality to reduce construction at this intersection. It added three through lanes in each direction, turning lanes, and access control for improved safety. And as you know, we also incorporated flashing yellow turn signals at the intersection to improve the movements through the intersection.
Mr. Ames?
Yeah, those flashing yellow lights, any accidents to date here?
We haven't seen any. What we're doing
Good.
is this is
You're monitoring that, right?
Yeah, we're monitoring this to see if we are improving the safety of the intersection. National results show that there should be improved safety and reduced crash
Yeah, I got
accidents at the intersection.
Lot of contacts about that.
Yeah.
So that's what I told them.
This project had $1.9 million in Prop 400 funds associated with it of the overall $6.4 million project, and we're going to return approximately $200,000 in savings from the project. And lastly, our Grand Avenue MIS project provides landscape, hardscape, and fence improvements along Grand Avenue within our Peoria city limits. It's nearing completion with a rubber seal coat being applied from 71st to 84th Avenue along this section. If you recall, this was the asphalt or pavement condition in this area was deteriorated beyond repair and needed to be milled and overlaid. We requested with ADOT to incorporate that into the project, and they did. This project was a $6.5 million project in which our local funds were $280,000, so a significant investment from ADOT into our area. And this shows the landform graphics and the painting of the railroad crossing bridge at Grand Avenue. Next, we'd like to go into some of the projects that are either under construction and will be going through construction in fiscal year 2014, or will start construction in fiscal year 2014. Includes Pioneer Community Park, the sports complex improvements, the Truck Road Reliever Project, and Lake Pleasant Parkway. As you know, Pioneer Community Park is well underway. The 85-acre development will include lighted sports fields, including 4 soccer fields, 6 ball fields. The sixplex is the first of its kind that we know of in the valley. A dog park with multi-cells and a 5-acre fishing lake. And we do anticipate the grand opening for this project being in mid-September of this year. And the total project budget for this is $26.6 million. And as Ms. Carlett indicated, this entire project will be served with reclaimed water. This shows the fishing lake and the sixplex from an aerial view taken last month. Our sports complex improvements project, we're at final design, and as Mr. Striffler presented to you last month, we are moving forward with our clubhouse improvements. They started demolition, and you'll actually see demolition from the street view by this weekend. It looks like they're going to start taking down the clubhouse, a portion of the clubhouse, and you'll see the exterior wall starting to come down this week. So it should be very exciting. We are also in the process of negotiating with the teams on what the improvements will be to the stadium. We have a $6.9 million budget to provide improvements to the stadium. We're working with the teams right now to negotiate what those improvements will be, and we'll be bringing that to council for you in the near future. This is all part of the 20-year extension of the lease agreement between the Mariners and the Padres, and we're happy to say that they'll be here for the long term. So that's great. And here's some renderings of what the clubhouse will look like. They're both approximately about 60,000 square feet when finished, which is an increase of 50% of the existing clubhouses, and brings them into a similar area and functionality to what other spring training teams have in the valley. The Agua Fria Truck Road Reliever Project from 112th and Rose Garden to 107th and Pinnacle Peak has been a long-standing project within the city. There were a lot of hurdles to overcome on this project, and I'm happy to say that the last one is underway, and the APS relocation of their major power lines that are in direct conflict with our roadway are under construction right now and will be finished within the next few weeks. So we are getting ready to go out for bid on this project. And we anticipate coming to council for approval to move forward with the low bid contractor before the summer recess. The project will provide one lane in each direction along between 112th and Rose Garden up to 107th and Pinnacle Peak, including a signal at 107th and Pinnacle Peak. And the whole purpose of the project is obviously to reduce truck traffic on Beardsley by 50%, which is what the studies have shown. We anticipate construction starting by the end of the summer and being complete by the spring of 2014.
Yeah.
Andy, didn't you have to work with 14 other organizations? Was it 14?
I think there was, 14 other organizations that we had to work with, the utility companies, state land, other landowners, the Army Corps of Engineers, the Flood Control District, McDOT. It was when we initiated this project and looked at all that we had to overcome, it was a daunting task. So I'm glad we're here.
Yeah, I'll bet you are. We're all really glad you're here and glad that you were able to accomplish it. Yeah, it's a great
So
job.
many of those agencies are so cooperative.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Everybody has a want. And also getting the utilities moved before the summer heat spell came on, that was a big deal too, or we were going to have to wait for another 6 months.
Yes.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job on that.
Thank you. This shows the new APS poles that were going to be installed to relocate because of the conflicts. And our Lake Pleasant Parkway project has started construction. It's going to provide 2 new lanes in each direction from West Wing all the way up to Loop 303 with a raised landscape median, bike lanes, a signal at West Wing Parkway, and the associated water and wastewater lines for future development in the area. They're currently blasting up there because of the hard dig conditions for the sewer lines. They're on schedule. The sewer line was one of the things that we thought would be the riskiest part of the construction because of the unknown subsurface conditions. It seems to be going well. We should be within budget and within our schedule and complete this by spring of 2014. This project also has Prop 400 funds. They're farther out in our horizon as far as getting reimbursed for a majority of those funds, but the project will be reimbursed for about 70% of its roadway costs. Unfortunately, we have to wait for some of those funds until the 2024-25 timeframe, but we will be reimbursed. And this shows some of the pictures of the sewer line installation. Next, we'd like to talk about some of the projects that are under design. You see a list of the projects. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ed Striffler to talk about the first 3 projects on the list: the Camino Lago Park, New River Trail from Northern to Olive, and the Pinnacle Peak Public Safety Expansion.
Andy, before you turn it over to Ed, I want to just make a maybe small editorial comment. It's easy for us. We're so close to the projects and the work to, in a way, take for granted the projects and the investment that Peoria is making in infrastructure. But it's really very few cities, I would say, in the country that have been able in this really difficult economic time to continue the important investment at the level we are in the infrastructure, both for today and for the future. And I think it's worth just saying that and reflecting on that it's a tribute to your leadership as elected officials, and I think the very good work of the staff to keep our finances and our construction program going as well as we have. So,
thank you. Mayor and Council, Camino Lago Park is located just north of our Sunrise Mountain Library. We master planned the library to eventually become part of the park setting. This project develops another 6.8 acres up to the boundary of what was to be a school with the Peoria Unified School District. Early in the design process, we engaged the school. At that time, I believe largely due to the economic downturn, the decisions to move forward with the school were put on hold. So we proceeded forward, master planned the park, and began the permitting process here at the end of last year. Then learned that the school district has decided, in fact, to go ahead and build the school. So we're a little bit in a holding pattern at the moment as Mr. Haynes and Mr. Sefton work closely with the district to understand what their plans are on our northern border and what amenities that we might share, as we've traditionally done in other school park adjacency settings. The public has kind of been on hold, wondering what's going on. So Mr. Haynes recently sent out a blast to the folks that attended the public meeting to give them that update on what was occurring. there may be future engagement of them as we learn how the two will best mesh. One of the other things that we've had to do to take advantage of the idle time here is we've set forth to do some more studying of the soil. We have learned that that particular area has very, very hard and rocky soils. And so as we don't repeat the scenarios that happened in Scotland Yard regarding contractor performance, we want to make sure that we have our ducks in a row and manage our risk accordingly where those subsurface conditions are known to exist. The numbers that you see for fiscal year 14 are largely a carryover of the prior year's budget in total. This will be a $1.9 million investment in the northern part of the city. New River Trail will complete our New River Trail system at the south end of the city and create a cross-river tie to the City of Glendale's trail efforts and thus allow our travelers to continue further south along the New River corridor. Glendale is ahead of us. The City of Peoria received some federal funds to pursue this project, and as such, the Arizona Department of Transportation administers this project on our behalf. Because of those federal funds, there's a substantial amount of environmental due diligence that occurs before we begin the final design and physical construction. We're pleased to announce we're just about at the end of that environmental phase, which will open the doors for us to get going with the traditional plans and specifications. We expect to start construction in spring of 2014, and the dollars that you see in the project budget here are our budgeted dollars that are required to match the federal funds as part of the grant conditions.
Mr. Leone?
Yeah, that's looking great. I've been getting a lot of calls. When are they going to finish that from Olive to Northern? Any idea?
From Olive to Northern. Well, we hope to begin construction between spring of 2014.
2014, so it'll be done in 2014. Then,
Probably latter part of 2014.
are they going to cross Northern into Glendale?
Correct.
Yeah.
At the northern alignment, it would be where we begin our crossing under and connect to the Glendale side. I believe upstream of Northern, we begin to descend and connect to Glendale at around the Northern Avenue Bridge.
Are they willing to work with us on that?
Glendale? Yes, we've been communicating with Glendale. ADOT's been facilitating the communications back and forth between their design team, our design team, and I would say it's going very well.
Okay, thank you.
The Pinnacle Peak Public Safety Facility expansion will occur at our northern police substation just south of Pinnacle Peak along Lake Pleasant Parkway. A few years ago, we expanded that site to the north to better address parking needs of both our officer vehicles and our personal-owned vehicles as the city's expanded its public safety presence in the north. We created the capital project to look at what expansion opportunities exist on that parcel. We master planned that parking expansion to include a location where we could build another 15 to 17,000 square foot building. We are embarking on a study to look at not only this site, but look at the lobby modifications that may occur at the Public Safety Admin Building at the same time. There are a lot of commonalities from a consulting perspective and understanding the vision of the police department, how they wish to engage the public, levels of security, et cetera. So this fall, it's our intent to come to the mayor and council and present the outcomes of that study. Leading up to that, there will be a couple of public engagement opportunities, one for the north facility as well as one for the improvements to the Public Safety Admin Building. This particular project, the expansion, is got a budget of $5.8 million. That's the total budget that happens to fall in fiscal year 14. The reality of which is we will only begin to spend the design dollars of that, and some of that will carry forward into 15 if we move forward into construction.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Our next project on the street side is a project that we added to the capital program last year. It's the 103rd Avenue West Half Street Improvements Project from Northern to Olive. The project will clean up the landfill debris within the right-of-way. This project is adjacent to the old Glendale landfill, and we do anticipate, since it was somewhat unregulated, that there will be some landfill debris cleanup when we go into this project. And so we'll do some subsurface investigations before we start this project with our design consultant to evaluate that. It includes right-of-way acquisition and West Half Street improvements, which will include paving, bike lanes, sidewalks, streetlights, and curb and gutter associated with this project. The existing pavement is in extremely poor condition, and so we will reconstruct the whole half street for this portion of roadway between Northern and Olives to create 2 lanes in each direction when we're completed.
Mr. Leone.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. When are we going to be starting that? From 103rd to Olive, from on 103rd Avenue, from Northern to Olive. When are we going to start?
Councilman, right now we're in the process of selecting our design consultant, and then we'll scope the project. It's going to take about a year and a half to get through the right-of-way acquisition, the design, and the cleanup of the underground, any type of solid waste that we find within the right-of-way. And we do anticipate starting construction in fiscal year 15, which is with the funded year.
So, are we going to be putting a wall up there, also taking a chain link fence down?
We are going to take down the chain link fence, and right now we're looking at proposing a wrought iron fence along that section,
And we're going to have a
adjacent to the golf course and the old Glendale landfill.
And you're going to have a sidewalk there, right?
And we will have a sidewalk there too.
How about landscaping?
And landscaping.
Then how wide will that road be? About 2 lanes or 1 lane?
We're looking at 2 lanes in each direction, and potentially a raised landscape median along that section also, if we can fit it within the existing right-of-way.
Did you get the okay from Glendale for that little piece?
Our most recent discussions with Glendale show that they are making progress to hopefully dedicate that right-of-way to us in the next few months.
Because I talked to the council person, new one, Sammy, and he said that he was going to work on it to dedicate it to the city of Peoria. So I don't know if he did or not, but that's what he was supposed to be doing.
We've been told by their staff that it should go to their council hopefully in May.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. This just shows some of the conditions of the existing pavement along on 103rd Ave. You can see what the disrepair of the existing roadway and the need for improvement. Our 75th Ave and Cactus Road intersection improvement project will provide 2 through lanes in each direction, dual left turn lanes, dedicated right turn lanes, bike lanes, and access control at this intersection for safety, as well as install storm drains and water lines. This is a similar project to 75th and Thunderbird, except for the addition of additional through lanes, which we don't feel are needed for the immediate future. We did receive $5.4 million in federal safety funds for this project. Our anticipated contribution is $3.9 million for this project. You will see this IGA come forward to the council for approval between ADOT and the city on April 23rd. ADOT, when there's federal funds involved in a city project, ADOT will take the lead on the project, but we will be a main partner with them. And this will be one of the first projects that ADOT will let a municipality go forward with a construction manager at risk delivery method for a municipality, which is going to be a big accomplishment for us. To have a low bid contractor go in and tear up your intersection is asking for trouble. So we're excited that they're going to let us do this.
Bob?
Mr. Ames.
Yeah, when do you anticipate putting restrictions on the road here for?
We have, I believe, the funding, the construction is anticipated for fiscal year 15-16. I think that's aggressive with an ADOT project. We will work with the public. We will have plenty of public meetings.
You'll be doing some utility movement?
There will be utility relocations that are involved, and we'll have to do a lot of subsurface investigation to make sure that whatever utility conflicts are there are removed before we start construction as best we can.
So you'll have some road restrictions apparently for quite a while?
There will be for an intersection project of this magnitude. It's typically about a 9-month project.
And how long did Thunderbird and 75th take? That was pushing a couple of years there?
The majority of the work was done within 9 to 10 months. There was some stragglers, work that continued beyond that, but the majority of the traffic control was up for about 9 months.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Our 75th Avenue Peoria intersection project is very similar in size and scope to our 75th and Cactus project. It does include federal funds for this project too, and when we go to council, it'll be a tandem approval for the IGAs that ADOT will lead. on April 23rd, and this project received $5.9 million in federal safety funds. Again, 2 through lanes in each direction, left turns to help with the traffic movements through the intersection and bike lanes. And the local funds on this project are $1.3 million. And we will work with ADOT to see what the best approach to constructing both of these intersections is, whether it's to construct them in sequence or to do them together, whatever we think is best for minimizing the disruption to the traveling public.
We can talk a little bit about that down the road, right?
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Leone?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Hey, can I go back to 103rd? I want to know, are you going to put a bike lane there from Olive to Northern?
Yes, we do anticipate putting bike lanes on each side of the street.
Okay, thank you. That's what I want. That's what somebody asked me, and I wasn't.
Yes. And our 91st Avenue street drainage project, we're currently under design up for this project. It's what you'd call a scallop street project, where there's sections of this roadway that are undeveloped and don't have the curb, gutter, and sidewalk and other amenities that typically meet our street standards. So we're going to go in and fill the gaps adjacent to those undeveloped neighborhoods to provide 2 lanes in each direction, including sidewalk, bike lanes, street lights, and a raised landscape median along this section for Butler and Mountain View for a community enhancement also. And it does include drainage improvements. We're at 60% design completion. We anticipate to be complete with the design by the end of this year and start construction early next year, hopefully to be ready for the Super Bowl and the traffic that comes associated with it. And this project's total budget is $6.5 million. Our Deer Valley Road Improvements Project is a project to address a project adjacent to us and with our neighbor for the McDodd improvements for the Deer Valley crossing from Williams down to Deer Valley and the bridge across the Agua Fria. This project is going to mitigate the impacts from that project. We will see an increase in traffic from that project. So this project proposes intersection improvements at 107th Avenue, as well as a raised landscape median and the raising of the privacy walls for the adjacent neighborhoods. We will have an additional public meeting once our consultant has come up with some concepts to make sure that the neighborhood is on board with what those improvements are. The design is currently underway. We're at the beginning stages. We just hired our consultant and scoped out the work. But we anticipate construction starting middle of next year and taking about 9 months to complete. And the total project budget for this is $2.7 million.
Ms. Carla?
What's the status of the county's project?
From what I'm told, this figure shows where the alignment of the county's project. From what I've told, they're still working with the state land department on acquiring the property on state lands, and I'm not sure what the details of that are, but I think it has to do with the mining rights of the underlying land.
So this could get pushed way back.
It could.
That's shocking. And they are actually building a bridge over the river, is that correct?
They are building a bridge, and it's going to be the ultimate bridge, which is...
Pardon me?
They are building a bridge. Originally, their scope was for a low-flow crossing bridge, but they are going to build a bridge that will protect the traveling public from a 100-year storm.
And how does it intersect with the Hall Road? The road?
This project, the Deer Valley Crossing will go over the Hall Road, or our truck route. So there will be no access from the Deer Valley Crossing to the truck route, and that was McDOT's condition to us.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
I guess there's no chance that the county is contributing to our Deer Valley project.
They've actually contributed $235,000 towards our project for some of those intersection improvements. That was part of our negotiation for the IGA.
Was that in not charging us permit fees?
I think we're both not charging each other permit fees for that.
Thanks.
The next project, the Vistantia Commercial Core Infrastructure Project, which is really a El Mirage Road project from Vistantia to Lone Mountain, is an economic development project as part of the development agreement with Vistantia. Vistantia is going to take the lead on this project. It is to construct the roadway, the missing gap between Vistantia and Lone Mountain. They'll construct one lane in each direction. It'll be very similar to the improvements on Lone Mountain Parkway from El Mirage to the Loop 303. It'll include bike lanes, landscape median, the drainage, water, sewer, and reclaimed water utilities associated with that. And what we're negotiating with them right now is that our maximum cost for that project will be $6.7 million. We're negotiating an amendment to the existing development agreement on this project right now. So it should be coming to council, I would hope, within the next few months before summer recess. This shows the barricades and the dead end of El Mirage at the end of the roadway, north of Vistancia.
Question, Mr. Ames?
Yeah, what's the distance from the 303 to El Mirage Road there? It's
I think it's approximately about a mile.
just a mile,
Yeah.
okay.
Next, we'd like to talk about some new projects that are in the CIP this year. The first is the P83 Entertainment District improvements, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. John Sefton to talk about some parks, trails, and facilities new projects.
Mr. Rivera?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Granger, I'd like for you to talk about drainage projects that we've discussed in the past and where they're at now. Would that fall under our capital improvement?
It would. We don't have. Do you have any specific projects here?
I know that there was a project that we were working with the county, or
Yeah.
I think the state.
We have an area drainage master plan that we're working with the flood control district that's really evaluating the city as a whole and the drainage issues that we have across the city. That project's going to be complete by the end of this summer. It wasn't ready to evaluate it and start incorporating projects into the capital program this year, but we're going to evaluate that once it's complete by the end of the summer and be able to incorporate the needed capital projects that are identified in that master plan for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Our P83 Entertainment District improvements is a new project within the capital program this year. This is phase one of a potential three-phase project along 83rd Ave south of Bell. It includes entry monuments, wayfinding signage, raised landscape medians, and pedestrian crossings for ease of access to get from the restaurants and commercial on the west to the sports complex on the east. And it also includes a right turn lane on Bell for a southbound turn onto 83rd Ave, which is something that we've been trying to construct for the last few years. I think it'll help the traffic movement in this area. Again, this is part of a design concept report that we're in the process of completing. These improvements could stand alone if they need to, but there's going to be some additional phases if the sports complex project comes to fruition. That would also benefit as far as streetscape enhancements along 83rd Ave. So this total project budget for this phase one portion is $4.8 million that will really help enhance the community in this area and help the businesses, we feel. This just shows some of the renderings.
Mr. Ames?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I know Glendale is looking at electronic billboards and 83rd and the 101 there. Are you aware of where they're at with that?
I'm not specifically aware of the proposed locations that they're anticipating.
Yeah, it's that land we ceded to them. 83rd and going to the other side of the freeway, right?
Yeah, I can comment on that. We've become aware that there has been a proposal from a sign company to put some of those electronic billboards in that location. Chris Hawkus, our Planning Community Development Director, went to a Glendale study session where they were talking about their sign program generally, and it was mentioned that there was some thought of putting signs in that location. We have communicated to Glendale officials that we have a lot of concern about that because there may be negative impacts to Peoria residents from that proposal. I think the important thing from our perspective at this point is that their sign code, their regulations in Glendale about the placement of these types of signs prohibits them in this location. And I talked with their assistant city manager about that, and he provided me that information with respect to their current sign code and the fact that this proposal was not in keeping with their existing codes and standards. Additionally, I spoke with their new acting city manager last week about it and voiced our concerns to him. I didn't want him to be surprised, and he was very understanding and appreciated our position, and will be providing that information in writing to the acting manager and the staff there as well. And I know Councilmember Edwards has been in contact with the council member from that district of Glendale to express our concern about that. So that's the status of that, Mr. Ames, and we're keeping a close eye on that.
I brought it up at this point because that could affect where we do our monuments and how it might impact on them. Hopefully it doesn't happen at all.
I don't think that
could, I don't know.
Yeah, because of the topography there, that particular parcel is lowland. And the reason the city in the boundary cleanup agreement maybe 6 years ago or so ceded that land to Glendale in return for other land that was then in Glendale that then came into the city of Peoria, as you might remember. That particular parcel is lowland that is not accessible from any Peoria roadways. You can only get to it going off of Glendale roads, and it's served by Glendale utilities. And it really, from a monument standpoint, in anything that would be in this project, it's sort of out of the way.
You think it's out of the way?
It's below grade.
Because those signs can go up high, right?
Well, the signs, and that's our concern, is that the signs would go up. But from what we're looking at here, and certainly, Andy, correct me if I'm mistaken, but I don't think any of the signage or monumentation in this proposal would be affected by that parcel because of its low-lying.
No, I don't think so. Most of our signage, our entryway signage, will be at 83rd and Bell on the two south corners.
Okay, since you're working with your opposite number, who also is there, do you have anything to add, Mr. Edwards?
Not at this time. I've been monitoring it and working with the councilman for Glendale, as Mr. Swenson said, and I haven't been in touch with him in a couple weeks, but we've communicated regularly, so I'm on top of any decisions that they're going to be bringing to discussion. He immediately reaches out to me.
Very good.
I have one question. Yeah. Andy, I have one more question. Can you go back one slide? With the monument, the P83, what are we doing for the businesses that are currently in that area? Because I've met several times with the local businesses and the if you call them HOA property managers. The concern is we just don't have any signage to show that we have businesses there and that they are open. And I'm really concerned that I'm excited about the fact that we're doing this improvement, but we need to be conscious that we have existing tenants there that are feeling left out. And can you kind of address what we're doing for them in the meantime until this project comes to fruition?
Until this project comes to fruition, I'm not. Maybe Scott White would be better suited to talk about that. But as soon as this project, when we get finalized with the design concept report, we're going to be coming. We anticipate to get a study session within the next couple of months. It's going to be in tandem with the development agreement for the Peoria Sports Complex. We feel that appropriate is to bring those two forward at the same time in a study session to give you more of the details of the design concept report and what kind of amenities we'll put in here. That will include wayfinding signage for those businesses to help people to be able to find those businesses in an easier fashion. But before we do that, we intend on holding a public meeting with those businesses too, so that they can give us feedback on what we're proposing for those improvements to be. And at that time, hopefully they can give us their feedback on what other improvements may be necessary.
Thank you.
Yep. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. John Sefton to talk about the next few projects.
Thank you, Mr. Andy Granger. I appreciate the opportunity again to present some new items for the parks area. Our first is the sports complex lighting replacement. This project will replace lighting at the two major league practice fields as well as the stadium. Our estimation cost is about $1.1 million. Will be primarily driven by efficiency and sustainability. We currently have 396 lamps at the stadium and 228 per major league practice field. The new system and the new technologies with lighting will knock down the stadium to about 212 and 100 at the stadium and 132 at the practice field. So it's nearly limiting the number of fixtures by 50%. Another picture. The next project is 99th and Olive Trailhead, and this will go in coordination with the trail development from Olive to Northern. It will provide an access point to the New River Trail system, comfort facilities, equestrian accommodations, in coordination with Maricopa County and Flood Control District will be required. We already have an existing IGA. This will provide in FY14 the initial design and necessary initial planning, and will then be phased into a site cleanup as well, and then improvements in FY15.
Leonie.
Thank you, Mayor. Did you ever get any requests for lights along the trail?
That's actually part of what our PROST discussion is about with the different stakeholder groups, as well as our public survey that will be going out soon. So we'll be addressing the lighting of trails and whether that is important for folks or not.
Because I hear two different things. I hear
We do.
you probably do. Some people want it, and some people don't want it. So I don't know just where we stand on that.
Right.
If you're going to take I don't know how many people who want it. I don't know if sign a petition or something, or ones that don't want it sign a petition. But I hear two stories in that. One is concerned that goes right by the mobile home park, and they don't want the lights shining in there. And I tell them the lights won't be shining in there. They'll be going towards the ground, if anything.
Yeah, the discussion of whether it's a wanted amenity or not, and then whether it's an affordable amenity, whether we can actually afford an amenity of lighting in an entire trail system, those are options moving forward. And we have a deliberate discussion point within the PROST master planning process to address the lighting of the trails. I feel that through the process that we'll have some better information on what the community wants, and as we explore it as staff, we'll have a better recommendation moving forward.
You're going to have public meetings in the area?
We have held some public meetings, and we have a survey tool that will be going out within the next 30 days.
And how far apart would those lights be?
It would really depend upon the location and ultimate design. So we don't have anything planned at this point for the distances apart, height, or intensity. So it's still very much a concept of lighting the trails.
Do we have any park rangers that go through there or anything? Because a lot of people say they see a lot of homeless people down there. Not a lot, but maybe a couple. And it's a concern.
We work directly with the police department on issues like that. If folks have concerns or see vandalism or vagrants living in the area, that we work directly with the police department, whether through park rangers or officers. That calling the police department, we can address those issues.
Because we had a big problem there, and John knows, and that Big Boys toys, they broke in, and a lot of expensive stuff in there. So I was just wondering if they have any patrols going through there every now and then.
I would have to defer to the police department on the rotation of scheduled visits by PD. But again, as we work with the neighborhoods to report suspicious activity, they stand ready.
All right, thank you.
John, Roy is here, and he can comment on that if it's helpful for the council members' comfort.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Councilmember Leone, to answer your question about big toys, we did increase our presence over there and have staffed that through our daily watch plan. We have not seen any more activity over there. I think the issue that's before you, and I believe Councilmember Edwards right now, is we're talking about some fencing over in that area. So that's the next thing that we're looking at for.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I guess as a side note to that lighting issue, we are lighting the major underpasses. So Do you know the specific one? We've got a handful of crossings that those projects are underway.
Almost all of our underpasses all the way up to, well, how far are we going up then?
Deer Valley.
Up to Deer Valley, we're going to be lighting over the next year.
Okay, this, without much of a slide, is the next project will be the Community Park number 3. You can see in the light shaded areas, that represents a 5-mile radius for the community parks. At our southernmost border, we have the Pioneer Park, a little further to the north, Rio Vista Community Park, and our proposed location for the Community Park number 3.
Could you back up a slide?
Sure.
And give us an idea of where that is?
Yeah.
Yeah, Prescott. Well, I have my glasses on, but there's
So our difficult boundaries in capturing maps and for presentation purposes is a challenge. Our next one actually helps us zoom in, and we can take a
Yeah,
little
but just
bit
a minute, what John's trying to illustrate there is a radius from each of the community parks. So if you go to the far south end and see the new Pioneer Park, there's a 5-mile radius, part of a circle you can see drawn there. The next partial circle up from that is a radius from the Rio Vista Park. Then going up to the north, there's a purple rectangular area. That is the new proposed Community Park 3, and the circle around that would be a 5-mile radius from that park. So what this shows is the area in terms of coverage that might be expected to be served by a new park as opposed to the other two.
I understand that, but can you give me some cross streets or some sort of boundaries approximately where the park is?
The next slide actually gets us a little bit tighter, and
Okay,
some landmarks there. So we're directly between the Lone Mountain Parkway to the west and the West Wing Mountain to the east, directly north of 99th Avenue.
Thank you.
Right now, we would anticipate the access to the park being when it gets built, probably coming up 99th Avenue from Jomax. TDR is in Tierra del Rio. The residential development is on the west there, and they'll be building their half-street improvements all the way up to the pretty much the south end of that park, and then we would build our access way in there.
Mr. Ames?
Yeah, on the previous slide, you have a note there, 10-minute drive. Is that, with those circles, everyone is within 10 minutes away from a community park?
Well, that's
by drive time?
That's an assumption, but that's a 5-mile radius. So with an estimate, it would obviously depend upon a lot of factors, whether you can make it 5 miles in 10 minutes, but a pretty good estimation.
And the circles intersect, so some people are going
and
to
they
even
do,
be closer.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So it really,
both parks.
the fact that we have freeways, the 303, the 101, and the accessibility that we have, our drive times are very much different. You've heard a number of folks come up from, they've mentioned that they've just come up from Grand or up Grand, and they were typically late to meetings. So timelines are difficult, but it's just it's an assumption. But with a 5-mile radius, we're making a general assumption that a 10-minute drive.
I've heard that Grand Avenue excuse, but I checked it out, and yeah.
It's like the train, right? But so this is definitely.
Questions, Ms. Carlett, and then Mr. Rivero.
Thanks. I've got a question about Community Park number 3 access. You just said 99th from Jomax north is going to be primary access. Did I hear that right?
That will probably be our initial access unless we have the funds to build the Lone Mountain portion from West Wing and Lake Pleasant Parkway over from the east.
From West Wing towards the west?
Towards the west, yes.
Towards
Do you
the
have
west.
access? Yes.
Okay. So if 99th is going to be the primary access, how is that going to be? I mean, by the time we do that, these homes that are going to be on the west side of that street will be built. They're not there now, but they're going to be by the time this is our access. So what can we do in the meantime so that all of those homes know what to expect before they buy their house? and move in and call their council member.
I think it's an important amenity to have a community park that close to your neighborhood. So
It's just the road.
Yeah, we
the
can
busy
work with the
street.
developer and see if we can put some type of information out at some of their open houses that they have.
Well, I think that's really important, that when they're selling their homes, they have that information to disclose.
Yes.
So that we don't hear about it later. And right now, that's just a 2-lane road. Is that scheduled to be 4 or larger, 99th north of Joe Max?
It's a collector road. I think we'll have to evaluate it. I can't give you a direct answer as far as, but we'll get back to you on that information.
Well, just put it into all of your considerations with regards to access to this park, because I think that's going to be a primary
And we'll
issue.
review the disclosures as well for that development.
Thanks.
Mr. Rivera?
Thank you, Mayor. Is this city-owned land?
It's actually land owned by the Bureau of Land Management, a federal agency, but we do have the rights to build recreational amenities on the land. The land's about 160 acres. Approximately half of that is high and dry land. The other half, the north half, is pretty much within the Agua Fria.
Okay. So the $30 million would go specifically to the park and the construction, not for purchasing land?
It would not go for purchasing land, no.
Thank you.
Again, as a phased project, we would see this as similar amenities, certainly not the same amenities as the Pioneer Park. So that's where we're getting the $30 million estimate, and again, phase 1. So when we talk about phasing in 2014 or 2015, we'll actually have funded the design concept report, which will help us understand more about the land and the requirement, access, utilities, traffic, and program elements for that community park. And design established in FY17 and construction for FY18. And with that, we will move on to the Community Works program. Dan?
Next, I'd like to introduce Dan Nissen, our Assistant City Engineer. He's going to go through the streets portion of the Community Works program. As you know, this program helps support some of the smaller capital projects that typically wouldn't make our capital program. They're in the $50,000 to $100,000 range as far as capital costs, and really are there to help enhance our neighborhoods throughout the city.
This slide before you just shows a list of the types of projects that are typically included in the program. And I know some of you have seen this before. And this shows a list of projects that have been completed in FY13. And my next series of slides will highlight some of these projects. In response to an ADA complaint, we completed the construction of missing sections of sidewalk along the south side of Peoria Avenue between New River Bridge and 99th Avenue. And in cooperation with the police department, the Peoria Unified School District, the principal of the Peoria High School, we constructed a new crosswalk on 83rd Avenue just south of Shangri-La, and then widened the sidewalks on both sides of 83rd Avenue to provide better access and safety for the students. Yes, sir.
Yeah, a question on that. Some people were concerned that they didn't know if they were, when the students were crossing, when they had to stop, because there's not a light there, right?
No, there is no light there. They are supposed to stop at the marks that are out there on the pavement.
Okay, but maybe you can look at, maybe there needs to be some clarification, signage or something.
Okay.
Because the students can be hidden by that fencing too, so. Maybe a sign,
when they're
a
standing
caution
in the
sign
refuge
or
area.
something, I don't know.
You're saying they're hidden when they're standing in the refuge area?
Yeah, I've had a number of
Okay.
constituents that, it's not in the Palo Verde district, but they drive down that way.
All right, we'll look at that. In cooperation with Maricopa County, we were able to raise the concrete barriers on both sides of the Happy Valley Parkway Bridge over the Agua Fria River, and then restripe the roadway to accommodate bicycles. And the Public Works Streets Division resurfaced a number of arterial streets throughout the city. We were able to restripe those to include bike lanes. This slide shows a list of proposed FY14 projects. It's a partial list. The complete list, as you can see, is found on CIP 34 and 35. And my next slides will highlight some of these projects. We're proposing to build a 5-foot wide decomposed granite path on the east side of 91st Avenue between Hatfield Road and Happy Valley Road. Again, in response to an ADA complaint, we will be constructing the missing sections of sidewalk on the north side of Peoria Avenue between the New River Bridge and 99th Avenue. One of the complaints we received this year was through Community Services Department regarding an additional pedestrian access for the park and ride lot across the street from the community center. This project, if approved, will convert one of the parking stalls to a pedestrian walkway, remove a section of wall, construct the sidewalk and necessary improvements to allow direct access to 83rd Drive. We had received some complaints this year about the east half street on 73rd Avenue between Olive and approximately the Eva Street alignment, that it was not wide enough to accommodate 2 lanes of traffic, that is 1 lane each direction. Our investigation showed that, in fact, portions of that roadway do not meet current city standards for half-street widths. So we're proposing to solve that problem by constructing the west half-street improvements. And then finally, I have the entry monuments. We currently have 2 entry monuments existing, one at Happy Valley Road and 67th Avenue, the other at Beardsley Road and New River. We have 3 monuments that are programmed for construction, one at 83rd Avenue and Butler Drive, and 2 on Grand Avenue, one at our east jurisdictional boundary at approximately 71st Avenue, and one on the west side to be placed in the area of Loop 101. For next year, we're proposing 1 new sign to be located in the area of Deer Valley Road and the New River Bridge. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions on these projects. Otherwise, I'd be happy to turn the presentation over to Kirk.
Mr. Patel.
Thank you, Mayor. Dan, I just have a question. I've been working with Maher Hazin on a city-owned retention basins, and there's not a drainage issue. It just looks bad.
Okay.
And those are the types of things that could, typically turn a neighborhood around or get it started in the wrong direction. Would that be a use of Community Works dollars to be able to beautify those retention basins?
Yes, I think it would be.
Good.
Do you have a list of those basins that Kirk or I could have?
Yeah, I can get those. Yeah, I'll get those to you. Thank you.
Mr. Leone.
Yeah, Dan, thank you, Mayor. Is it in the books on the ADA on Sun Air? Did you make, I know they were working on them. On Sun Air, they were putting some of the ADAs in there?
Yes, sir. If I remember correctly, the homeowners associations at the Sun Air Estates subdivisions, the 2 subdivisions have requested some handicap ramps be installed in that area. Those are programmed for this fiscal year.
They're starting to do them now.
They should be out there. I didn't know that they had started.
Yeah, they started now because I saw. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Carlin.
Dan, can you say again what you said about the road between Happy Valley and Hatfield?
Oh, yes. One of the, we're proposing to construct, for pedestrians, to construct a 5-foot wide, compacted, decomposed granite path on the east side of the street that will allow pedestrians to travel from Hatfield Road up to Happy Valley Road.
Is that an equestrian?
It could be potentially used as it's a pretty much a multi-use trail. We thought about potentially putting a sidewalk in there or putting the multi-use trail, which is the decomposed granite, and that's what we thought would be the best approach for this area. It's based on a citizen request.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions?
Mr. Mayor and members of council, as Mr. Granger pointed out, a lot of our community works programs are lower level funding projects, but even though they don't have a high price tag to them, they really do create a high impact to the neighborhood and to the community. Over the course of the last 5 or 6 years alone, we've been able, through some of the community works programs, to develop and replace some of our playground structures within our infrastructure that are starting to deteriorate and lose some of their playability. We're also able to accomplish some of the shade canopies, whether it's for the spectator areas in some of our sports fields that we have, or some of our playground infrastructure that we have. We've done swing replacements and a whole host of things, and we really focus on trying to do the improvements that are touching people directly and having a high impact on their quality of life. How do we go about determining which priorities we start looking at and creating for our program? We look at the service needs. So if a service need isn't being met, we'll look at that as trying to develop that particular amenity. Example would be, we had a couple of parks over the last few years that didn't have swing sets on them, and so we were able to go in and put in swings. We also look at customer service needs. Many times we'll have our citizens call in and make comments to us and provide us feedback and input, and we'll say that's a great idea. We'll put it into the program, and within the next year we're able to accomplish some of those needs. We also assess our current infrastructure and try to identify where those priorities ought to be. So with a host of ways of developing the priorities, we're able to accomplish great outcome and input from our community and for our citizens. Here's a real quick overview of the projects that were on last year's list that are being completed or have been completed over the course of the last 9 months. Here's a before and after shot of some of the fencing at Murphy Park Little League Field. You can see on the left it's a little bit deteriorated and hadn't been replaced for a number of years, and the nice sharp lines that we have in the current year. We have some safety concerns that we're also addressing, such as basketball courts or other fencing replacement programs. Here's the basketball court at Sunny Slope. It's a highly used facility, and we're able to meet the need of the neighborhood by creating a nice, good surface, quality surface for the next 3 to 4 or 5 years. And in this case, as I had mentioned earlier, to install a new swing set at one of our neighborhood parks that hadn't been there since the park was built several years ago. And again, we have shade canopies that have been a very successful program over the last 6 or 7 years. In the upcoming year, we have a number of projects that are also listed, and I'll give you time to search through those particular items.
Mr. Hayes?
Sure.
The underpasses, are those not to be put in the wall?
They will be put on top of the up above and try to remain as vandal-proof as possible. It's yeah.
A lot of cities in the U.S. and Europe, those underpasses become places for
Inappropriate behavior on occasion, yes, that does happen, and we felt it was very important to try to create a safe zone for anybody that's passing through those during the evening hours.
They're not real long.
That's correct. Generally, 60 to 75 feet is all. Good question.
Mr. Rivera?
Thank you, Mayor. For basketball court resurfacing, do you use a formula, or is this something that you check up, you revisit every 6 months? Or?
We're assessing them on an as-needed basis. We know that the life, and it's similar to the tennis court type of surfacings, and it really depends on the underlayment. If the subsurface is in good shape, we find that the surface works out really well. There's times where we have to go in and repair cracks so the surfacing holds up over a longer period of time. But it is on an as-needed basis, and we do our inspections on those basketball courts routinely.
Can you look at the ones at Barney Park and get back to me?
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
You. Mr. Edwards?
Thank you, Mayor. Kurt, can you explain right tree, right place?
It's a good question. In one of the programs that we started last year was to look at our right-of-way landscaping and try to identify some areas where the power companies have come in and pruned trees inappropriately. We call it the V-cut to avoid all of the power lines, and in those circumstances, the tree is too large in its existing space. So we'll come back and put in a smaller tree, a small tree that'll allow time to grow. And as we move forward and the tree begins to fill in the space, we'll go back and remove the larger tree because they'll continue to cut and prune and they'll look very awkward over time. So we're putting in smaller trees to fill in underneath, to stay underneath the power lines. So we're always constantly looking at our urban forest and trying to put in the right species at the right locations. And that could be with the width of our right-of-way as well, and it's overgrown in its space.
Okay. And then next question is on your recycled trash and receptacles at various parks. Are we putting recycling in every park? And I think we should. I mean, we're toting recycling programs, and I think that we need to have recycling receptacles at all of our parks so that the residents can take advantage of that option.
That's a great point, and we hope to do that over a period of time. This will get us started on some of our recycling program within our neighborhood parks. It'll probably cover an additional 6 to 7 parks, as well as working better at Rio Vista. We had a pilot project out there. We're going to convert that over into full-blown recycling, and then we'll start looking also at our neighborhood parks and putting in recycling cans, and over the course of the next couple of years, we'd like to fully have recycling cans at each of our neighborhood parks.
And if I'm just a moment, Mr. Mayor, I have a question for you. Do you ever, obviously, the demands exceed your budget on any given year. Do you ever approach the council members to use district funds for some of the smaller projects? The reason I ask is when I first came on, I paid for the swing set and everything else at Hunter's Ridge up there, just north of Bell Road on 91st.
Yes. We call that Desert Amethyst Park now.
Oh, are we, the council members, doing any of that anymore?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there are a number of projects that will occur over time. Sometimes it's sign replacements, sometimes it's landscaping, and I do get a host of requests that come in over the course of the year that for use of district funds for specialized projects, and we're happy to fulfill those. I typically don't come forward and ask for those funds, but if the council member would like us to do some projects, we'd be happy to work on those.
Okay, Mr. Leone?
Yeah, on 114th Avenue and Golden Lane, landscaping.
Sorry.
What was that at? What are you going to do?
We have it highlighted here on the screen in front of you. I'm sorry,
Oh,
I had a couple of pictures here that were upcoming projects that I just wanted to highlight, and that just happened to be one of those that is on our slide. So the area that's in yellow is that it used to be a former well site. It's basically a vacant yard area enclosed by a pipe rail fence, and there is no landscaping in there, and there really should be. So the request was to come in, put in a new water service, and put in landscaping and dress that up. Sitting bench, trash receptacle, those type of things.
Okay, and like John was saying, I don't think Country Meadows has those recycling cans, do they?
They don't yet,
They don't?
that's correct.
Are we going to put some in there, or do I have to use my district funds money?
Well, that's one way to get them.
Absolutely, we would be looking at that as one of our sites.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next, we're going to turn over to Bill Mattingly to talk about some of the public works utility projects coming up this coming year.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Pleased to be here this afternoon. I'm going to highlight a few of the projects in the Public Works Utilities Department. The first one I want to talk about is really a maintenance program. It's not necessarily a capital improvement project because this is a reoccurring project from year to year. We fund this on an ongoing basis. It's a $2 million per year commitment to resurface our streets. This is a program that is driven by our pavement maintenance program, our pavement maintenance program. The intent of that program is to preserve our streets and to maximize the life of those facilities. And we do that by evaluating those on an annual basis, and we look where we can spend the money best to preserve the most pavement. So in general, we do about 2.5 square miles per year through this pavement maintenance program. In this case, we're talking about surface treatments, which are preservative treatments on streets. In this last year, we began a new program we call the Street Reconstruction and Rehabilitation Program. And this is a program to address those streets that are not suitable for a surface treatment. Some streets are so badly deteriorated that it's not worth your money to go out there and do a surface treatment, such as a slurry seal or a micro seal. So in this case, what this does is it goes in and it will remove the existing pavement, or at least the surface of the existing pavement, and then do an overlay on that pavement to virtually give you a brand new pavement. And in this last year, we identified an area between Union Hills and Beardsley, 91st to 99th, which is in the Westbrook Village area. And we have a project that we're going to be beginning a little bit later this fiscal year. So between now and June, we will bring a contract to council for approval to begin this project. This $4.4 million budget you see here consists of $3 million in the current fiscal year and an additional $1.4 million in the next fiscal year. So we'll be rolling those, using the funds that we have in this current year and rolling those into next year to make that a seamless project. Additionally, we're going to hit another area in the south part of the city, and that would be in the vicinity of Cortez, between Cortez and, I'm trying to remember the other street, Cortez and, I'm missing it. I'm sorry? Yes, thank you. Yes, it's in the vicinity of Scotland Yard Park. Right, so it's between 91st and about 93rd Avenue. There's kind of there's a small neighborhood streets in there, and these are roads that were very badly deteriorated and need to be reconstructed.
I'm glad you said that because I'm going to bring it up. I talked to a couple of homeowners today and wanted to know if we're going to do it. Do you know you went the first of the year?
We would be doing this project in the first part of the new fiscal year, so it'll be later this summer, this fall.
And how many streets? All of them?
There are 4 streets that would be included, and the streets are Cortez, Canterbury, 93rd, and 92nd.
Right by Scotland Yard Park.
Exactly, and right there in the front of Scotland Yard.
Because they complain you only done half. You done half, but not the other half.
Yes, we went in and did some remedial work. Their road was in bad shape, and we've talked about this at a council subcommittee meeting some time ago. And this is the one that's a very good candidate for this kind of program, and we're going to be doing it, as I say, a little later on this summer, fall.
So I can inform them that it'll be done on the 20th. I got a neighborhood meeting on the 20th, so I can inform them that'll be done.
It's included in the new CIP program, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Carlett?
Bill, can you help me to understand this? There's a number of different categories here for regular street maintenance. So we've got, first of all, the ADA accessibility program. We've got major street repairs at $100,000 a year. The sidewalks program, the re-chip seal, well, that's a dirt road, excuse me. But then there's the street maintenance program at $2 million a year, right?
Yes, so the street maintenance program at $2 million is the one I just talked about, which was the surface seal.
Okay.
The major streets that you referred to there would be if we had to go into an area, and it would vary as to where that would be, if we had to go in and do a major repair on a localized basis. So that would be a contingent on just the condition of that localized segment. $100,000 doesn't get you a whole lot, but it's just enough to take care of that.
So it's kind of an emergency fund?
Yes, it's
okay.
Contingency to some extent.
Contingency. All right, and then street reconstruction and rehab.
Which is what we're talking about now. And that we used to use a chip seal was a very common way of extending pavement lives. The chip seals are just very unpopular in residential areas and even on collectors because of the rough surface. And what this does, it takes a road that is in very bad shape, where chip seal might be a candidate in terms of a structural section. But this goes in and mills the road down and gives you a nice new surface and extends the life. It's a new road.
It is very nice. Is there a schedule? Is this done on a scheduled basis, starting at one end of the city, going to the other end, and then backwards again? You know,
it's driven by the pavement maintenance program. So it's based on available funding and priority. And there's two things go into the priority. The priority is what is the condition of the roadway and where does it make sense to best spend those available dollars to extend the life of that roadway.
so we're not really at a point where we can be systematic about it. We are still reactionary. Is that correct?
No, I think we are very systematic about it. In other words, we're looking at pavements on an annual basis. And we're looking at the condition of all of those. We give them a score. We rank them from 0 to 100. And we look at those roads that are in the, say, the 70 percentile. Those might be more of a candidate for a surface treatment, a crack fill, and then a slurry seal on top of that. That extends the life of that pavement for another 5 years or so. In some cases, again, as we look at those, some that are in the, very badly, if their score is less than 50, they may be candidates for this reconstruction project. Some of them are projects like 103rd Avenue, which Mr. Granger was talking about, which may be a candidate for an overall capital improvement project. So there's a variety of ways that we address the maintenance of our roads. Some of them are more reconstruction, some of them are ongoing preventative maintenance, and primarily this is a preventative maintenance program.
Okay, and during the economic downturn, did we stretch the time between reconstruction or maintenance on these, and now we're able to kind of fill in those gaps again?
But the restriction on this program is really the available funding. We have not changed the funding. We have added roads to the city. I mean, that's what's happened as we've had a lot of development before the boom. We've got a lot of new roads as a result of that. But we haven't increased the budgets in these areas. And largely that's driven by our restrictions on the primary funding source, which is our gas tax, our HERF monies. And those HERF monies are limited. In some years, the state actually swept those dollars or restricted those dollars. So that becomes a restriction on our available funding. But I believe we're doing a very good job on keeping up with this. If the HERF dollars were more, then we could do more sooner.
Okay, thanks.
This project is really kind of a replacement of another project that was in our capital improvement program previously. And this is a program to provide additional water treatment capacity for the city as our water demand increases. This particular proposal would be, instead of building our own water treatment plant, and I'll talk about this again on the next slide a little bit more, but this one would be to acquire additional water treatment capacity in the Pyramid Peak water treatment plant. That's the City of Glendale water treatment plant. That's what's shown on this aerial, and that's located basically at 67th Avenue and Jomax, north of that intersection, a little further north, and you can see that it's situated on the Central Arizona Project Canal. We are a current owner in this plant. The plant currently has a capacity of 48 million gallons per day. We own 11 million gallons per day, and we use every drop of that. And why do we use that? We have other sources and supplies of water, but this is the least expensive cost per gallon for us in our city. And this happens to be uphill from most of our service area, and this feeds through the system from Glendale without pumping. And so it's gravity fed, so it's a very efficient plant. So it is in our interest to see if we can expand our ownership capacity in this plant. And I have, in fact, contacted my counterparts in both Glendale and Phoenix. I'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. And they are indeed interested. There's opportunities for both them and for Peoria in terms of making some strategic connections between their system and our system, which would improve their system reliability. So there are some mutual benefits for us to expand our capacity here, then ultimately other things that can be done that will help them and their system as well.
The time frame on this, 2015 to 2018. 15 is great. 18 seems a little far out with regards to development in the area. Is that true, or?
No, I believe we're in good shape with respect to our water capacity right now. We do have some surplus capacity, but I believe that we're going to need in the next 5 years in the range of 5 million gallons per day. Now, that will take us out to, for the next 10 years. In the next 10 years, let me go to this next slide. In the next 10 years, we're going to need additional supply. And an increment of capacity at that point would be nominally another 10 million gallons per day. You don't need 10 million gallons a day at year 10, but if you're going to build your own plant, or you're going to expand a Pyramid Peak plant, or if you're going to get capacity in, say, a City of Phoenix Lake Pleasant water treatment plant, 10 million is a nominal unit of capacity. So that's why we're talking, to reiterate, in the next 5 to 10 years, another 5 million gallons per day of capacity. In the next 10 to 15 years, an additional 10 million gallons of capacity on top of that. We have a number of things that not only do we have some surplus supply today, we are continuing to drill wells. A good well will produce about 1 million gallons per day, and that's a substantial amount of capacity in terms of water supply. So ultimately, certainly we want to be on a renewable supply to the extent that we can use our Central Arizona Project canal water. We have Central Arizona water resources, Central Arizona Project water resources, so we want to maximize those, but we also have groundwater available to us as well.
Okay, and so this slide is titled North Peoria Water Treatment Plant Capacity, which confuses me a little bit because it sounds as if there is a water treatment plant called that.
So
are you really talking about this overall, the overall possibilities of all of these things combined?
Yes, so what I'm showing here, again, I talked about needing 10 to 15 year time frame, an additional 10 million gallons of capacity. So how would you do that? There are at least 3 alternatives. One would be to buy capacity in the Lake Pleasant water treatment plant, which is a City of Phoenix water treatment plant. Another would be to build our own plant, which has previously been referred to as the Agua Fria water treatment plant, which might be located in the vicinity of Lake Pleasant Parkway and the CAP Canal north of the 303 interchange there. And then alternatively, the Pyramid Peak water treatment plant, getting additional capacity there beyond the 5 that I was talking about, building additional capacity there. What we need to evaluate is there is interest on the part of both Glendale and Phoenix. They validated that in my conversations with them. But we need to look at what works for us strategically in terms of where we're pushing that water to, what other things we need to do in our system to extend those water lines. You might think if it's a long distance between from our current service area to the Lake Pleasant plant, but Andy Granger's talking about extending a water line up to the 303 with his Lake Pleasant Parkway project. It's only 4 more miles to the Phoenix plant. So our strategy is evaluating all of those things together and what is the least cost for us to supply our water supply needs.
Okay, and so, excuse me if I might, you've got this 10 years out, and I see that we don't need the capacity now, but I know that now things are much cheaper than they're going to be in 10 years. So let's just say we're not going to build a plant, the Agua Fria water treatment plant, but that we would want to tap into the Lake Pleasant water treatment plant. Could we secure that capacity at this time at today's rates?
Exactly. That is the whole purpose of having the discussions with Phoenix and Glendale now. Because if we need to secure that, we need to figure out which way we're going to go. And as I described it when I spoke to the Phoenix folks and the Glendale folks, we're at a fork in the road. We can build our own plant. We know we have an estimate of what that's going to cost. It's going to be expensive. We could buy additional capacity in the Pyramid Peak water treatment plant or expand that, or we can get capacity in the Phoenix treatment plant, or some combination of either Phoenix or Glendale. So it is for us to evaluate all that, do it now, because if we have to make a decision to build our own plant, ultimately all those other things fall off the table, we have to build our own plant. It's going to take us 5 years to build that plant. So decision points are now, and securing those rights now is very important.
But the budget doesn't have any money for 10 years.
We won't know what those costs are, and as we mature our discussions with Phoenix, Glendale, we will be moving these dollars around to fit the scenario that best works for us.
Okay. It's good to be flexible. Thanks.
Ms. Rames.
And you'll be looking at the time value of money, too, as a factor in that, right?
Yes, there's a whole variety of factors, but yes, financing, our ability to financing, what is our bond capacity, how does it get paid for, all of those things, cost of water. This is a project that connects the city of Peoria system to the Vistancia system. This is in the vicinity of Lake Pleasant Parkway and West Wing Parkway. It connects across the Agua Fria River to the Lone Mountain Parkway. The blue line that you see is a 24-inch water line that will connect the existing Peoria system to the systems west of the Agua Fria. So as you look at the various scenarios that I just talked about, if you're going to bring water from Lake Pleasant water treatment plant south to this intersection, you can send water west of the Agua Fria. If you're going to bring water from the Pyramid Peak water treatment plant, that water line runs to this intersection of Lake Pleasant Parkway and West Wing Parkway. We would tap into that. Alternatively, if we drill wells, one opportunity for wells as we see it is north of this lake that we see on this photograph. There is apparently groundwater in the area, so that's another supply. Again, the wells, I talked about the capacity of the wells. So this is an important link. This is actually in this year's budget. The money is going to be our cost to oversize a water line that is a commitment of Vistancia as a result of their development agreement with the city. I talked about wells. We have some wells that we idled because of changing water regulations. In this case, there are two wells, one that is located at 89th Avenue and Union Hills, and as you can see, there's a reservoir there, and there's a fire station just south of this. That's fire station number 2. There's another well that's a little bit to the east and south of this on Country Club, and those two wells we're going to bring together, run a pipeline between the two wells, bring them to this site where this reservoir is, and put in a treatment system. So we will be blending the wells and treating them, in this case for arsenic treatment, so that we can utilize the well's capacity that we have had idle for some time. Now, the capacity of these wells are combined in excess of 2 million gallons per day. So when I was talking about having supply that is already operational today, that this will add to that supply.
I'm sorry, Ms. Leone?
Thank you. I just want to ask a question. I don't know if it's in here or not, but on the Butler well, are you working on that on 103rd Avenue? I see trucks there for the last 2 or 3 weeks, about a month, and then working inside on that well.
Yes, sir. So the well you're referring to is, as you said, 103rd Avenue and the Butler alignment. That well is operational. What they are doing there is they are sandblasting the inside of the tank. There's a reservoir there, a 1 million gallon reservoir. They're sandblasting the interior of that, cleaning it. They're going to be recoating it, and that'll be returning that to service. That's part of our maintenance project on existing facilities.
Because that's where my water comes from.
It comes from there, it comes from other parts of the city, but yeah, that's the most direct supply to where you're at.
So the water's okay then?
It is indeed.
Okay. Just want to make sure. When he says sandblasting, I was wondering. Thank you, Mayor. Go on.
We are exploring, as I indicated earlier, a potential for a water supply that is in the northern part of the city, and this mark on this map, this little square on this map, is where we are going to drill a well on state land. It's in the vicinity of Loop 303 and Lake Pleasant Parkway, and we're going to explore whether or not there is indeed groundwater available to us there. If we are successful there, then we may go forward with additional wells along the Agua Fria. That would be, again, another water supply for us. We think that there is a sustainable supply there, so it's for us to understand how much, what quality it is, and this is the first project to do this. And then this well here will tie into the pipeline that, again, I referred to that Andy's putting in. There's a pipeline that's going to come up at Loop 303 in Lake Pleasant. That's going to be done. It's under construction now. We would tie that well in there, and that would be a supply for the city.
Just out of curiosity, what's the depth of groundwater?
I don't know offhand. Okay. It's probably not as deep as it is in the south part. Here, we're probably, the 700 foot to groundwater. We think there's a perched water table that kind of sits on bedrock along the Agua Fria there. And this is kind of a unique location geologically that has been identified for some time. This is our first attempt to actually explore that.
Yeah, I think you probably answered you have geological surveys that you look at and make your predictions from them to
yes, Councilor Ames,
to do the actual assessment.
Yeah, in fact, what we did was we did a substantial hydrologic study probably 6 or more years ago to try to figure out where that groundwater might be in the north part of Peoria. And we've tapped some of that. The wells that we have in Vistancia are part of what we identified and have tapped since then. We've got 10 wells in that area. This is a new ground for us. There aren't, in fact, any wells in the area. So it's really kind of proving up to see whether or not that water supply is there. We were talking earlier about the reclaimed water system from the Butler Water Reclamation Facility. This project here is an expansion of the system we have right now. It's an enhancement to that system to supply the new Pioneer Park. The Pioneer Park has a lake, and of course the turf will be irrigated with reclaimed water. So these are enhancements that we're making to that facility. We're adding a 100,000-gallon storage reservoir to support that facility. And that concludes my presentation, and I believe the entire CIP presentation.
Questions? Mr. Rivero.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mattingly, is that 1.2 part of the 26 million for the park, or is it a separate?
This funding is separate from the park funding.
Okay, but it's what's the total cost of the park? Does it include that 1.2?
I believe the total cost of the park is 26 million.
Including this?
Well, and if you included this, it would be another 1.2 million. I don't think this just serves just the park, but it serves the rest of our reclaimed irrigation system too.
Yeah, Andy's exactly right. This is part of the overall reclaimed water system. So it's complementary to serve the park there, but it also extends that pipeline that runs up 83rd Avenue and serves this campus, and ultimately will get to Asuna Park. There's a pipeline that's later in the CIP that will extend it from where it is right now, just south of this campus on Mountain View, up 85th Avenue to Grand Avenue, and ultimately to Asuna Park. So this facility is infrastructure that's necessary to serve all of those customers. It's needed now because we have a big customer coming online right now.
Thank you.
Question, Mr. Patena?
I have a question. Andy, how do you determine, or what criteria do you use to determine a need for sound walls?
Mayor, members of the council, what we do is if we have a new project that's going to expand a roadway, or if we have a new roadway that's going to go throughout the city, then we hire a consultant, or we have the consultant hire a subconsultant to do a sound study. And that there's programs that are available that do traffic projections for the future, and there's certain criteria. We follow the ADOT criteria for a certain decibel level, that if it goes over that decibel level, then that's where we meet a criteria for raising and putting in sound walls.
And this probably is a question for Dan. Dan, for a number of years we used to do curb cuts I'm assuming that that program has stopped, but my question is, have all of our neighborhoods been served in terms of having curb cuts made?
Councilman, one of the programs that we still have in the CIP, and I believe it was referred to previously by Councilwoman Carlott, is the ADA accessibility. That program allows the city, once we receive an ADA request, to go into the right-of-way and say construct a handicap ramp or make other ADA accommodations in the right-of-way as requested.
But you only do them then as requested? You don't have a program anymore that just goes out and...
No, if we don't receive a specific request, we still have areas throughout the city where, especially the older areas, where they do not have handicap ramps. So we've been trying to bring those up to date. But as we get a request, we put that request as a top priority.
Mr. Ames.
Yeah, I'm assume the presentation is done, and I went through all of this, and not everything was addressed that was in here, so I have some questions. Well, I thought we were going to go through these, but let's see, page 99. This is with the Grand Avenue landscaping. Now, ADOT's paying for that, right? Because that's a state road?
Yes, Councilmember Ames. This is the MIS Grand Avenue landscaping project that we showed as one of our accomplishments that's going to be completed next month. This is the tail end of the project for what we owe ADOT as far as for the funding for that project. So I can't remember the exact amount, but it was minimal. Of the overall $6+ million project, our contribution was $60,000 or $70,000.
$64,000,
yeah.
I believe. Okay. And then we got total operating impacts. Do we pay those impacts, or ADOT does, or we share them, or how does that work?
We, in our IGA, and I don't remember the specifics of it, but the landscaping and some of the maintenance that we're required to maintain, and then they maintain the pavement itself.
Okay. So that's
and there's an IGA agreement as far as what that is. And the operating impacts in here are the operating impacts for the city.
Okay, and we have money in the budget for, in fact, $300,000 for traffic signal software replacement. That's going to improve our traffic timing.
That's correct. Our existing software is outdated, and there's new technology out there that will significantly improve the operation of our traffic management center.
And we recently did that community study, and one of the key drivers for satisfaction with the city is the proper signaling of traffic lights, and that occurs in other cities too. That makes citizens happy when they can kind of move in a nice flow, and rather than the opposite, stopping at every light just as they get there. Of course, they have to pay the speed limit, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And the water and wastewater rate study. Now, we're going to do that next year, is that right? What will that entail? Because I notice you're requesting an increase this year, and you're doing that prior to the study?
Councilor Ames, we do that on a periodic basis, because if you look in the CIP, you see those dollars are reoccurring in there. We do, in fact, had a consultant that we worked with this year. No, I guess I'm mistaken there. They worked with us on the impact fee analysis. That was Raph Ellis.
Right.
But we have, in the last few years, done this work internally. One of the reasons we put this in the capital program is it allows us to include it in our impact fee analysis. So we put a modest amount in there on a reoccurring basis to potentially hire a consultant. We can always elect to do it in-house. But it's in there primarily to provide that funding source and to allow us to collect impact fees.
Yeah, you have 90,000 for 2015 in there. Okay. The transit park and ride. Can you address that? I don't think that's this coming year, isn't it? The following year.
Yes, Councilor Ames. The transit park and ride lot.
That's 16, right? Yeah.
Yes, so you have the park and ride lot, and there's a transit center that are in the CIP. And this is regional funding. It is our money from.
Through our PTA?
Yes, exactly so. So it's the Prop 400 money that was earmarked. This was a project and a program that was identified in that bond election. We did an analysis, you may recall, we did the multimodal transportation study a few years ago that looked at a couple of potential sites, including at 83rd and Grand and another at 91st and Grand.
Right.
There's still some analysis to determine which is the most appropriate site. We've not yet engaged that study. We've been talking with our PTA about doing that. Currently, there are no Peoria direct funding in this. There are some federal dollars that would also team up with this. But there is a question of what exactly do we build, and if we don't have routes adjacent to it, is it appropriate to build today? So this is money that's been in the Prop 400 program, in the RPTA program, earmarked for Peoria. But the question is it the right time to build, and if so?
Yeah, that's actually my question. Is it the right time? We don't really want to build an empty lot, right?
Well, in fact, other communities have done just that, and we look at that, and the region looks at that and says, well, we built these really nice facilities, but we don't really have the ridership, or we don't have the routes to support it. So does it make sense to build it today is a real question.
I notice the total amount pushes almost years 16, 17, and 18 fiscal years, almost 7 million. Is that primarily through Prop 400?
It is. It is that, again, with the federal. I don't know precisely what the breakdown is.
Okay. We'll be talking some about that, right, as time goes on. Good. Those are the main ones I wanted to ask about. And thank you. Good presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Leone.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank Dan Neeson for putting that fence up on Butler. If you don't know what it is, it's almost like a landfill. You can't build nothing on it. It's got the electric power line, so everybody backs their trucks in and unload all their stuff, couches, chairs, and I want to thank Denny's put that fence up. But Dan, they know they can't go through there from Butler. Now they're going to go, don't you? From Olive, which means another fence. But we haven't come to that yet, so I want to thank for putting that fence up. And for Bill, I want to thank you for putting that on Cortez area. That's Ron's old district. But if you can give me a list in my district that you're going to be doing, I'd appreciate it. So because I get a lot of calls, like from Country Meadows, that's in Cotton Bowl area, when they're going to do this. So if you can give me a list, I'd appreciate it.
We will do that.
And the other thing is that I see on here, the last page on 112, West Green Unit 9 sound wall. Do we already have that on there behind Sun Valley Elementary School?
Yes, Councilman, that's the extension of the ADOT sound wall along Loop 101. ADOT would not extend that wall if it went outside of their right-of-way, but they did give us the funds to complete the wall on the south portion of the elementary school. So that we've hired a consultant and we're in the process of completing the design to go forward with construction on that sound wall.
They're going to finish that wall?
Yes.
Do you know when? Okay, thank you.
Bob, yeah, the question was brought up about, is there a need for sound walls? And I know ADOT also looks at if there's commercial buildings there versus residential, and that's a factor they take into account. And I know we actually argued with them a little bit about that, but it doesn't seem to go in favor of the people living on the other side. But, they were kind of strict, weren't they? They were a few feet too far away or something, I don't know.
Councilman, Mayor, some of the issues with that is it's typically federal funding, and so they've got to follow strict guidelines, or they won't get reimbursed for the construction that goes on.
Questions or comments? Thank you very much. Why don't we take a 15-minute break, and we will resume at 7:05 by that clock.